During dinner, my mom declared, "It's for those who actually contribute." My sister's face was a study in smugness. "Just be glad we told you everything," she said. "Thanks for the honesty," I replied. Then I went home, shut down the payment portal, and blocked every link device. At 5:17 a.m., my brother texted, "We can't board. Call the airline." I ignored their messages. Later, the first call came in. I've never known a rage so profound. Not when my sister wrecked my car and laughed it off. Not when my mom got a credit card in my name when I was 19. Not even when my dad told me to toughen up after I was laid off during the pandemic. But that dinner, that smug, carefully planned dinner, was different. It was the moment a part of me broke. Not with a bang, but with a slow, cold certainty that made everything crystal clear. They'd chosen their usual restaurant, Beyond Keys, a place they adored, not for the food, but for the ambiance, white tablecloths, imported olive oil, and menu items no one could pronounce. I arrived on time, as I always did. I even dressed nicely, naively, hoping for a rare, calm family evening. I was so stupid to be hopeful. Everyone was already there. My mom kissed my cheek, despite having ghosted 3 of my calls the previous week. My sister barely glanced up from her phone. My brother gave me a nod like we were coworkers, not siblings. And my dad offered that tight, forced smile he always uses just before he's about to say something terrible. The dinner started normally. Bread, wine. My mom complained about airport security, even though her flight was a day away. I recall laughing at something silly my brother said about his trainer. For a fleeting moment, it felt like a real family. Then the atmosphere changed. You could sense it, even if you didn't know why. My mom waited until the pasta was served. I'd just taken my first bite when she put down her fork, looked directly at my sister and said, "It's for those who actually contribute." Silence. No one reacted at first. Then my sister smirked, not even trying to hide it. My brother kept his eyes on his phone, but I saw his shoulders tense. My dad casually wiped his mouth as if it were just another Wednesday. "Just be happy we told you it all," my sister said, not looking at me. She didn't have to. It was all so practiced. The only thing I could say was, "Thanks for the honesty," and I meant it. Not out of gratitude, but because they had finally said, aloud, what they'd been thinking for years. I wasn't family. I was the bank, the safety net, someone they could step on as long as I kept paying for the ground they stood on. You see, the trip to Italy was my idea. I wanted to do something special. We hadn't traveled together in a decade, and I thought it could be a fresh start. So I planned everything, booked flights, reserved hotels, and even arranged day tours, spending just under $30,000 from money I'd saved over 2 years. I assumed I'd get some of it back later. That was the unspoken rule, but it turns out their plan was to go without me. They decided I wasn't driven enough and didn't understand what it meant to build a future. This was all whispered behind my back, then casually dropped on me as if it were no big deal. Of course, I paid the bill. No one else offered. Never do I left without saying goodbye. When I got home, I didn't yell or scream. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started canceling everything: the flights, hotels, and car rentals. The system let me recover about 80% of the cost. So yeah, I lost $6,000 just for the privilege of not being humiliated across the Atlantic. Then I revoked every linked device. My mom, dad, and sister had all had access to my travel app. I kicked them out. I also blocked their emails from my account. I finished around 3 a.m. At 5:17 a.m., my brother texted, "We can't board. Call the airline." By 6 a.m., I had 5 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, and 3 from my sister. One text from my dad simply said, "What did you do?" At 8:10 a.m., the phone rang again. I answered. "You're out of the apartment," he said. "I want you out by next week." Then he hung up. I stood in the quiet, looking at the place I'd called home for 2 years. Technically, it was theirs. I paid them $1,000 a month to live there, which was less than market rate, but they micromanaged me like a teenager. They decided when the AC could be on, who could visit, and what furniture was acceptable. Next week, he said. No, I thought. I started packing that morning. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. I didn't reply to his call or messages. I just started packing slowly and deliberately, not out of fear, but because I wanted to remember this moment. Every piece of clothing I folded, every drawer I emptied, every small item I had once felt lucky to own in their apartment. They wanted me out by next week. I would be out in 2 days. It wasn't even noon when I had half the kitchen boxed up and 3 bags of clothes sorted. Around 3 p.m., I found a listing online for a furnished one-bedroom in a quiet part of town. The guy renting it had just taken a job in Canada and needed someone immediately. I messaged him. He called within 10 minutes, and after a quick video, tour and a Venmo transfer. The place was mine for the next 6 months. Just like that. No co-signed lease. No dad had to approve. No questions about needing a second pillow. The next morning, they showed up. I was on the floor taping a box shut when I heard the knock. I knew it was them. I opened the door, and there they were. My mom was holding a plastic container of Danish pastries, as if this were some kind of family brunch. My dad stood behind, her hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. I could hear my sister's voice on speakerphone from my mom's purse. My mom said they had been thinking and maybe they were a little hasty. My dad said I was clearly in a bad place emotionally, and they were willing to forgive and move past it if I stopped acting irrationally. It took everything in me not to laugh. You think I'm irrational because I stopped funding your trip to Europe? Because I didn't let you humiliate me and still pick up the tab? My sister's voice chimed in from the phone. She said I was acting hostile and blowing up years of family over one mistake. That word, drama, was the final straw. I told them the truth. All of it. I laid out every small moment that had been festering inside me for years. Not just the Italy trip, but everything. The time I took out a loan to help with Dad's back surgery because insurance wouldn't cover it. The times I canceled plans because Mom guilt-tripped me about being absent. The time I paid my sister's rent twice because her roommate bailed. The years I gave and never got so much as an apology. You don't get to call it drama now. I said, you don't get to play confused. They stood there pretending to listen. My mom said I was rewriting history. My dad said I should calm down before I burned all my bridges. Too late, I told them. I'm moving out in 2 days. No, you don't need to worry about the rent. No, I don't need your help. No, I'm not coming to Sunday dinner. And no, I don't want to hear from any of you. And I shut the door. They didn't come back that night or the next. 2 days later, I moved. The apartment was small and a little beat up, but the windows let in light. The neighbors didn't know my name, and I could finally breathe. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't owe them that. For the first time in years, I felt like a person again, a whole one. Not a wallet with a pulse, not a backup plan, just Julia. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. The first week in the new apartment felt surreal. I'd wake up expecting a passive-aggressive group text, a lecture about family unity, or a reminder to take out the trash, even though I hadn't lived under their roof for years. But there was nothing, just silence. It was the kind of silence I didn't know I needed until I had it. Asterisk, I slowly filled my space. I got a cheap couch off Facebook Marketplace, set up my desk by the window, and bought a second-hand espresso machine just because I could. Every choice, every little decision was mine. No one hovering, no one asking why I needed something, no one guilt-tripping me over my priorities. Then, a week and a half after I moved, I got an email with the subject line, "Please call us." Urgent. It was from my mom. Deleted it without opening it. An hour later, another one came from my dad. "We need to talk. It's important. Please don't ignore us." I muted the thread but couldn't help checking their socials. My sister's Instagram had gone quiet. My brother's gym check-ins stopped. And my mom hadn't posted a single cat meme in days, which for her was a major cry for help. Then came the third email from my brother's account. "Hey, something happened. Please just call me." I didn't. I sat with it for a few hours, wondering if someone was seriously hurt. For a moment, that old guilt crept back in. That reflex they had hardwired into me where everything was somehow my responsibility. Where ignoring them meant I was a bad daughter, a bad sister, a heartless person. But that moment passed. By the time I opened the email out of pure curiosity, it was already outdated. The content was vague, as if they were afraid to explain the full situation in a text. But I understood the tone. Something had gone terribly wrong. 2 days later, I found out what it was. They didn't tell me. My cousin Derek did, apparently. The airline never refunded the taxes on the non-refundable leg of the trip. The hotel in Rome charged a cancellation fee that was conveniently buried in the fine print, and the travel insurance. They never followed through with the claim because none of them had actually read the policy I bought. Their total out-of-pocket loss was almost $8,000. To make things worse, my dad had put a chunk of it on a credit card he was already behind on. The bank froze his account after a mispayment, and my sister's tuition reimbursement from her job fell through. Their trip that never happened still managed to financially ruin them. Karma, it seems, has excellent timing. That's when the begging started. The calls picked back up, this time with voicemails. My dad stammered about needing to talk. My mom cried. My sister said it had gone too far and they were all suffering. I listened to every single one, but didn't answer. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my mom called 5 times in a row, and the last voicemail changed everything. She said between sobs that if I didn't help them now, I wasn't their daughter anymore. I played that message twice, sitting there, staring at the wall as it sank in. You're not our daughter anymore. It was meant to be a guilt trip, a manipulation tactic. But it didn't hurt the way they thought it would. It felt pathetic, desperate, and empty. I didn't reply. 2 months passed. I started to find my rhythm again. Grocery runs, work, friends, peace. I was sleeping better and looked healthier. People noticed. Then, one afternoon, I saw something that made me stop in my tracks. I was walking to get lunch and saw my dad's car, except it wasn't my dad driving it. A week later, my cousin sent me a screenshot. They had sold the car. The moment I saw my dad's car listed on Facebook Marketplace, something shifted inside me. I wasn't surprised they sold it. They always put pride above planning. But what caught me off guard was how fast it had all crumbled. Just 2 months after the cancellation, they were letting go of what used to be his most sacred possession. That car was his identity, his throne, his statement to the world. Now it was some teenager's first ride, probably filled with vape smoke and bad decisions. I thought that was the end of their downward spiral. It wasn't. A week later, just after I got back from the grocery store, I found someone standing at my door. Hoodie, sunglasses, backpack. For a second, I thought he was a neighbor. Then I recognized him, my brother. I hadn't heard from him since. That lunatic text from the airport. No warning this time either. He just showed up as if this were a sitcom and we were about to patch things up over a couple of beers. He didn't wait to be invited in, walked straight past me, sat on the edge of my couch, and just said it. They need help. I leaned against the wall and listened. Apparently, things had gotten much worse. Their savings were drained, credit cards frozen. The bank had started sending warnings. My mom's hours at work got cut. My sister, who was supposed to be the successful one, was under an HR investigation at her company involving the misuse of a corporate card. He didn't give details, and I didn't ask. Then he hit me with it. They're behind on the mortgage. That was the one thing they'd always held over my head, the apartment they let me live in. for $1,000 a month while constantly reminding me how lucky I was. Now it was at risk, 2 months behind. The bank had already sent notices. I said nothing. He reached into his backpack and pulled out an envelope as if it were some grand reveal. Inside were printed bank statements, a drafted repayment contract, and a formal request for me to loan them $10,000 to stabilize things. It had bullet points, signatures, and interest rates, like we were business partners instead of family. I stared at it, then looked at him. A contract after all that? He said. They wanted to show me they were serious, that this wasn't just another handout. I didn't laugh. I didn't yell. I just stood up, walked into the kitchen, and got 2 glasses of water. I set one in front of him, sat down with mine, and waited. He started filling the silence with excuses. He said they were stressed and that the things they said weren't meant the way they came out. That my mom didn't mean it when she said I wasn't their daughter? I just listened. Then, calmly and simply, I said no. He blinked like I was speaking a foreign language. No, I'm not helping. Not again. He sat there for a long time. Then he said something that really stuck. If you don't help them, this could get really bad. I told him it already had, and I walked to the door. He didn't argue, just stood up, mumbled something about how they'd figure it out, and left. That night, I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was shaky. We shouldn't have said that about you not being our daughter. We were angry, scared. We didn't mean it. I deleted it because I didn't care anymore whether they meant it or not. 'Twas what they really thought. 'Twas only family when I was useful. When I wasn't, I was disposable. Then, 3 days later, something happened that caught me completely off guard. I got a fraud alert email from my credit monitoring service. Someone had tried to take out a payday loan in my name. A $3,500 online application using my old address and my name. It didn't go through because I had frozen my credit months ago, right after I moved. It was just a precaution at the time. I never imagined it would be them. I requested a copy of the application. Everything matched. My name, birthday, social security number. It wasn't a hacker. It was someone who already had my information. Someone I used to live with. They never mentioned it or owned up, but I knew. And for the first time, I truly didn't feel like their daughter anymore. I felt like a target. I didn't confront them. There was no point. If they were willing to use my identity to squeeze out a loan, then whatever was left of our relationship wasn't worth preserving. I filed a report, locked down my credit even harder, added an alert with the bureaus, and moved. On quietly, without drama. That's the part they never understood. Cutting someone off doesn't always come with yelling. Sometimes it's just a locked door and silence. For a few weeks, nothing happened. The messages and calls stopped. I almost started to believe they had finally accepted it. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from my cousin Lena. Just a screenshot, no caption. It was my mom's Facebook post. She had tagged half the family and wrote, "Some people pretend to be family until you need them. Hey, some people pretend to love you until you're no longer useful. But that's okay. God sees everything." There were lots of comments, all vague and loaded. So, sorry, Marie, you don't deserve that. People forget who raised them. God will handle it. Then came the direct messages from aunts, uncles, and even my grandma. Why are they saying these things? What happened with your mom? You need to fix this, Julia. Family is all you've got. Didn't respond to most of them, but then Uncle Jeff called. Not a voicemail, an actual call. I picked up. He asked me straight up, what the hell happened? So I told him everything. The Italy trip, the cancellation, the eviction, the manipulation, the payday loan attempt. Every ugly detail I had kept quiet about out of respect, thinking maybe they would come around. I didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't interrupt once, he just listened. When I finished, he was quiet for a second, then said, "Jesus Christ, Julia. They didn't tell us any of that. Later that day, my cousin Derek messaged me again. He had called my mom after seeing the post. He said she tried to cry her way through the conversation, spinning the story to make it sound like I was unstable and dangerous. But by then, most of the relatives had already heard the real version, and they weren't buying it. One by one, the comments under her post started disappearing. The post itself vanished the next day. Then came the final blow. My mom messaged me, not with an apology or regret. She just said, "I hope you're happy. You've turned everyone against us." I stared at it for a minute, then typed one sentence. "No, you did that all by yourself." I sent it and blocked her. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. After I blocked her, I expected things to go quiet again. I thought maybe that was it, the final swing, the last pathetic jab. But I should have known better. Silence isn't my family's style. If they couldn't control me, they'd tried to control how people saw me. 3 days later, I woke up to a flood of notifications. Apparently, my mom had made a new post on Facebook. One of those dramatic black and white text and background types that screams victim from a mile away. It read, "He's not mentally well. Please pray for my son. We're heartbroken, but doing our best." Some things are beyond our control. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew who she was talking about. And in case there was any doubt, she commented under her own post with an old photo of me at age 12, smiling at a family picnic. I felt sick. Then the calls started. First, my grandma, then Anna, then some distant cousin I hadn't heard from in years. They were concerned. They'd heard I was spiraling, that I might be unwell, that I'd lost touch with reality. A few even asked if I'd been using drugs. I genuinely laughed for a minute, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Then the real surprise hit. One of my mom's old coworkers, Cheryl, reached out. I barely remembered her, but she said she had always liked me, thought I was polite, and wanted to give me a heads up. Apparently, my mom had been crying at work saying I was cutting myself off and making threats that she feared for my safety, for their safety. She even suggested to Cheryl that she was thinking of filing for a restraining order against me. That stopped me cold. I hadn't done anything. No calls, no visits, no threats, not even a single message since I left. But she was planting seeds just enough fear, just enough ambiguity. And that's when I realized this wasn't about money anymore. This was about control. They couldn't shame me into helping. They couldn't guilt me into coming back. So now they were trying to isolate me, one relationship at a time. I was furious. But then something happened that I never saw coming. Uncle Jeff, the same one I told everything to, posted his own status that afternoon. It was public, with full names tagged and in bold. It's hard watching people rewrite history to protect themselves. Proud of my niece for finally setting boundaries. Maybe if more of us had done that sooner, things would have been different. It went viral in our family group. Everyone saw it. Some messaged me privately to say they were sorry. Some shared stories of how they'd also been manipulated. It turns out I wasn't the only one my parents had pushed around over the years. I was just the first to push back this hard. Then came the final surprise. My dad emailed me. No subject, no greeting, just one line. "You've embarrassed this family enough. We're blocking you." That was it. No apology, no attempt at peace, just one last pathetic attempt to reclaim power. And I let them, because by then, they weren't my family anymore, just people I used to know. The one update's been a little over a month since the last message from my dad. The one where he said I'd embarrassed the family and that they were blocking me. I never replied, and I didn't need to. That was the last thread cut, the final bit of noise. After that, everything just stopped. For the first time in my life, there's no tension when I check my phone. No panic when I open my inbox. No obligation weighing down every weekend. It's just silence and freedom. Life's not glamorous, but it feels real. I still live in a small apartment with crooked cabinet doors and a faucet that hisses like a snake every morning. I still eat frozen dumplings more often than I should, but I can breathe here. I can leave dishes in the sink. I can watch a movie at 2 a.m. without someone knocking on my door asking why the lights are still on. A couple of weeks ago, I bought a tiny used dining table and built it myself. Didn't call anyone for help, didn't ask for approval. I just did it. Every screw went in crooked, but it stands. That table means more to me than anything I left behind in their apartment. I got a cat, Olive. She's a menace. She knocks things off counters for fun, screams at nothing at 4 a.m., and follows me around like she's making sure I don't screw up again. I think she gets me. Work is stable, actually better than before. Without the constant emotional drain, I've been sharper, more creative. I even started freelancing on the side and landed a couple of decent clients. I'm finally stacking a savings account that no one else has access to. I've heard from a few extended relatives since. Some apologized. Some admitted they had always suspected something wasn't right with how my parents treated me. One of my cousins even thanked me. She said watching me stand up for myself gave her the push to finally move out of her toxic house too. My parents haven't heard a word. I don't miss them. Not because I hate them. I'm just tired of performing the role they wrote for me. The good daughter. The reliable one. The walking wallet. The buffer between their chaos and the rest of the world. I still think about them sometimes, especially late at night. I wonder if they regret any of it. They sit in that now silent apartment wondering what they could have done differently? Probably not. But that's not my concern anymore. Here's what I've learned. When people say family is forever, they're not wrong. But sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one you're meant to keep. Sometimes you build your own with the friends who check in, the neighbor who invites you over for board games, the cat who curls up on your chest when you can't sleep. I thought I'd feel empty without them. Instead, I feel full, whole, even. And for the first time in years, I'm not trying to get back what I lost. I'm finally building what I never had.